They say marriage is like building a house. You lay each brick with care, hoping it'll last through the seasons. I believed that. God knows I did. My name's Tom. I'm 34 now, and not too long ago, I was just another man trying to build something real with the woman I loved. Her name was Emily. We'd been married a little over 2 years, but our story went way back. 6 years if you count the whole journey. We met at a work conference of all places. 2 tired souls laughing over bad. Coffee and broken projectors. Friendship came easy. Love followed quietly. The kind of love that feels more like home than fireworks. Emily was everything I'd hoped for in a partner. Smart, beautiful, always smiling in that calm way that made the world seem slower. She never made a big show of affection, but when she looked at me across the dinner table, I felt seen. You know what I mean? Life with her wasn't dramatic. We didn't fight much. We didn't yell. We were ordinary, peaceful. And to a man like me who grew up between 2 broken homes and too many slammed doors, ordinary felt like a blessing. I worked hard, always tried to be a good husband, made sure the bills were paid, date nights happened, when they could, and that she always had someone to come home to. I thought we were solid. I really did. Then came Jake. Jake's my stepbrother, 28, the kind of guy who never grew out of his reckless years. Wild ideas, too many drinks, and always 1 foot out the door. He's my father's stepson from a second marriage, so we weren't blood. But we grew up side by side through our teenage years. Let's just say, if life were a card game, Jake played for the thrill, and I played to win slowly, hand by hand. He showed up on our doorstep one night after losing his job. Said he needed a place to crash while he figured things out. I wasn't thrilled. Emily and I had our routines, our quiet. But when my dad and stepmom both called asking me to help Jake out, I couldn't find it in me to say no. Emily said it was fine, so I said yes. Funny how small decisions feel harmless at the time. Jake moved in with a smile and a duffel bag. I laid down the rules. No bringing strangers over, no late-night parties, and for God's sake, don't wake us up. He nodded, all agreeable. Said he just needed a couple weeks. I didn't know then that letting him in was like leaving the front door wide open during a storm, thinking the rain would never reach the hallway. But it did, and it soaked everything I built. At first, Jake was surprisingly well-behaved. He was out most nights, came home at dawn smelling like bars and bad decisions, but he didn't cause any real trouble. No loud music, no strange women. He even helped cook a few times. I remember, one night, he made spaghetti and cracked a joke about how he was finally growing up. Emily laughed. Not a big laugh, just one of those soft chuckles she gave when something caught her off guard. I didn't think much of it then. Looking back now, I remember how strange that night felt. The way they smiled at each other across the kitchen. How he asked her if she liked extra garlic like he remembered. And how she said, "You've got a better memory than Tom." It was harmless, on the surface, but there was something about the way she said it, like an inside joke I wasn't part of. Still, I brushed it off. You do that when you love someone. You choose trust, even when your gut starts whispering otherwise. 2 weeks in, Emily and I had a weekend trip planned. Vegas. Not for fun, really. I had a quick business thing to attend, and we figured we'd make a mini vacation out of it. We both needed a break. She'd been feeling tired lately, more quiet than usual, and I thought maybe getting out of town would bring her back to herself a bit. The night before we were supposed to leave, she got sick. Bad stomach flu. Could barely stand up straight. I wanted to cancel the trip, but it was last minute and I had a client waiting. She told me to go, said she'd be fine and that Jake could keep an eye on her if she needed anything. I hesitated. Something in me didn't want to leave her. Not because of her health, but because... I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like, walking out of the house and realizing too late you left the stove on. Still, I went. And the whole time I was in Vegas, I couldn't relax. I kept checking in. She said she was okay. Jake said she was sleeping, drinking tea, watching movies. And when I got back the next day, she did look better. Not great, but better. She smiled. When I walked in, gave me a hug, asked if I brought her anything. I told her I didn't have time, and we laughed it off. Jake wasn't around that afternoon. He'd gone out early, she said. Life carried on like nothing happened. But then, things started to shift. Jake stopped going out as much. Started hanging around the apartment during the day, sleeping in more. Emily was home more too. A few days later, I came home from work early and found them coming in together. Said they ran into each other outside the building. I smiled, nodded, told myself it was coincidence. But the gut, man, the gut never lies. And mine, it was twisting. Like a wrung-out towel. Emily started taking more sick days, half-days, headaches, fatigue. And she didn't always tell me about them until I got home and noticed. Little things, small cracks, but it's the small cracks that bring the whole wall down, isn't it? I still told myself it was nothing, that I was overthinking, that I'd been tired, stressed from work, but love, real love, makes you pay attention. And I was beginning to see things I couldn't unsee. The thing about suspicion is, it doesn't start with a bang. It starts in the quiet, a missed call, a strange look, a pause too long in a conversation. That weekend in Vegas, it never really left me. I'd only been gone for a day and a half, but when I got home, something had shifted, not on the surface. The house still smelled like lavender candles. The dishes were done, and Emily gave me the usual tired smile. But there was something missing in her eyes. A softness that used to be there when I came home. Like the difference between a hug you feel and a hug you just go through the motions with. Jake wasn't home when I got back, which was odd. He was usually out late, sure, but this was 2 in the afternoon. Emily said he went out early to give us space. I nodded. It sounded thoughtful. Too thoughtful coming from Jake. The following week, it was like someone had rearranged the furniture of our lives just slightly. Jake stopped disappearing all night. Now he was lounging around more, sitting on the couch. With a book, Jake, reading, or cooking dinner for both of us. Emily complimented him a little too often. Jake makes the best scrambled eggs. Jake remembered I like cinnamon in my oatmeal. Small things. But when you love someone, you notice when they're giving pieces of themselves to someone else. One Thursday afternoon, I came home early. Headache from hell. I was planning to crash on the couch with an ice pack and some Tylenol. But when I walked through the door, I heard laughter. Their laughter. I followed the sound to the kitchen and found them sitting at the table, deep in conversation. They both looked up like kids caught doing something wrong. Emily blinked first, smiled too, fast. Hey, hun! Jake was just telling me about this weird art gallery he saw. Jake nodded, grin plastered across his face. Yeah, man. Thought I'd stick around today and chill. I told them about my headache. Jake vanished pretty quickly after that, and Emily rubbed my shoulders and said I needed to relax more. But that night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and felt something tighten in my chest. It wasn't just jealousy. It was fear. The kind of fear you feel when you hear a strange noise downstairs in the middle of the night, and you know something's wrong, but you don't want to get up and check. I started keeping mental notes. When Jake left, when Emily called in sick, when they were alone together, I wasn't proud of it. It felt like I was spying on my own home. But love makes you cautious, and fear makes you careful. Then came the moment that shook it all loose. Emily told me she was pregnant. She stood there, holding a little white stick in her hand, eyes wide, half smiling, half nervous. I stood still. Not shocked, just cold. The kind of cold that starts in your gut and spreads out like ice in your veins. We'd always talked about kids, someday. She wanted to wait till she was 30. We'd been careful. Always. She couldn't take the pill, so we used protection religiously. Accidents happen? Sure. But 2 months? The exact time Jake had been living with us? I didn't say anything at first, just held her, told her we'd figure it out. But inside, something was breaking, slowly, like bending glass that hadn't snapped just yet. She was excited, said this could be a blessing, that it was meant to be. And I smiled, because what else do you do when the woman you love is smiling through what might be a lie? That night I barely slept. My body was in bed. My mind was 1,000 miles away, pacing the same hallway, staring at the same shadows on the wall. I didn't want to believe it. But belief doesn't always stop the storm, and this one was rolling in fast. I used to believe that when a marriage starts to fall apart, it's loud, like slamming doors or shouting matches. But truth is, most of the time, it's quiet. So quiet, you don't even realize what you're losing until it's already gone, after. Emily told me she was pregnant. I tried. Lord knows I tried to act normal. I smiled. I kissed her forehead. I asked her what names she liked, but inside me there was this ache. A twisting, dull ache that wouldn't let me go. Like when you know you've lost something important, but can't figure out where or when. I started noticing everything. She stopped touching me. Little things. No more hand on my back when she walked by, no leaning into me on the couch. She used to sit close. Now she kept a cushion between us. She started coming home later, said work was piling up, said the pregnancy was making her tired. I offered to go to doctor appointments with her, and she told me not to worry. It's just a routine checkup, nothing exciting yet. But it should have been exciting. This was supposed to be the beginning of our family. Instead, it felt like I was watching someone else's life play out while I stood on the sidelines. One night, I asked her directly. We were having dinner, chicken stir-fry, the one she used to say was her favorite. She barely touched her plate. I waited until the silence got too heavy, then cleared my throat and said as calmly as I could, "Emily, is this my child? This." Fork dropped from her hand and clattered against the plate. Her eyes went wide like I'd just slapped her. "What kind of question is that?" she snapped. "How dare you?" I tried to explain, gently. I told her about the timing, about how I'd noticed changes. I told her that it didn't mean I didn't love her, but that I needed to know, for my own peace. She exploded, called me paranoid, accused me of trying to control her body, said I was twisting things, and turning this miracle into a crime. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't yell. But I asked again, softly, this time, if she would agree to a paternity test after the baby was born, and that broke her. She stormed out of the room, slammed the door, didn't speak to me for 3 days. When she did, it was through clipped sentences and cold shoulders. We slept in separate rooms. That house, once filled with light and music and little dances in the kitchen, became silent. Like a museum, full of memories but no life. And every night I lay there wondering, what if I'm right? What if Jake is the father? But the worst question, what if I'm wrong? What if this really is my child, and I just ruined everything by not trusting her? That kind of doubt, it eats you alive. You stop eating. You stop sleeping. You stop being you. One Thursday morning, I woke up, and her side of the bed was still untouched. She hadn't come home. I texted her. Called her. Nothing. Hours passed, and I started to feel like I couldn't breathe. I called her office. Her assistant told me she'd taken 2 personal days. I called her friends. No one had heard from her. That was the moment I knew something had snapped. Not just in her, but in us. Because marriage, at its core, is trust. And once the foundation cracks, it doesn't take an earthquake to bring the whole thing down. Just time, and time was no longer on our side. The night she disappeared, I barely slept. I lay there, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in slow circles, thinking about everything and nothing all at once. My mind replayed every moment, the first time she kissed me, the way her hand used, to find mine in movie theaters, the way she said, "I love you," like it was a promise, and now she was gone. Vanished without a word, without a trace. I kept telling myself maybe she needed air, space, a walk to clear her head. But as the clock ticked past midnight, then 2 a.m. and still no word, I knew better. The next day, I went to work but didn't last an hour. My stomach was in knots. I came home early, hoping, praying she'd be back. But the apartment was quiet. Lights off. No note, no text, nothing. By evening, I was on the verge of panic. I called her mom, her friends, even the hospitals. Then finally she called. Her voice was cold, flat. Not the Emily I knew. She said she was fine and needed time to think. Said I didn't need to stress her out by involving her family. Told me not to make a scene. And just like that, click, she hung up. I stood there, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone. My wife, the woman I built a life with, had become a stranger. The next morning she came back, woke me up early, sat on the edge of the bed like nothing had happened, said she had solved the problem. I rubbed my eyes. What problem? And that's when she said it. So casual, like telling me she'd returned a dress she didn't like. I had an abortion, she said. Now you don't have to worry. There's nothing to question anymore. Just like that. I stared at her, wondering if I was still dreaming, or maybe having a stroke. My ears were ringing, my mouth dry. I asked her to repeat it, and she did. Same tone, same calm delivery. I did it for us, she said. Now we can start fresh. Fresh? I had no words. None. Only silence. And in that silence, I felt something inside me snap. It wasn't just the baby. It wasn't just the affair. It was the choice she made, alone, without me, without even a conversation. She had taken what could have been my child, our child, and erased it like it was a mistake on paper. And she stood there, expecting me to thank her. I got up, slowly. My feet felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds. I walked past her, grabbed my keys, and left. She followed me to the door, calling my name. But I didn't turn around. I remember saying one thing, just one. If peace is what you want, don't follow me. And she didn't. That night, I checked into a hotel, called my lawyer, told her everything, the infidelity, the lies, the abortion. Wasn't even thinking about revenge. I was just done. Something inside me had broken in a way I didn't think could be fixed. I also called Jake, told him I knew. At first, he tried to dodge. But when I said I was divorcing her, he went quiet. Then, finally, he apologized. And weirdly, I didn't feel rage. Not anymore. I felt numb. Later that week, I went back to the apartment while she was at work, packed her things, changed the locks. Left her suitcase in the hallway like a ghost moving out. I didn't cry, not that day. There are some wounds so deep they bleed on the inside. I've always believed there's a line in every man's life. The point where you stop trying to fix what's broken and start figuring out how to survive the wreckage. For me, that line came the night I picked up the phone and called her mother. I wasn't planning to. Hell, I'm not proud of it. But when you've been lied to, cheated on, and erased from the biggest decision of your life, you stop worrying about being the bigger person, her family's old school, Southern values, big Sunday dinners, cross hanging above the fireplace kind of people. For years, I sat through those family gatherings, holding her hand while they asked when we'd give them grandkids. Emily always smiled politely and said, "We're not quite ready yet," and I backed her up. Every single time. Never told them it was her decision. Never let her take the heat alone. So when I called her mother, and calmly told her why we were. Divorcing, I didn't feel guilt. I felt done. I told her about the affair, the pregnancy, the abortion. At first, she didn't believe me, said Emily would never do something like that. I said, "Ma'am, I've got the test, the doctor's notes, even a damn confirmation from Jake." There was a long silence. Then her voice dropped, quiet, like someone just dropped a family heirloom, on the floor and watched it shatter. She did this behind your back?" "Yes, ma'am." She thanked me, said she'd take it from there. I hung up and exhaled. Not satisfaction, not revenge, just relief. Within the hour, Emily's phone lit up my screen like a fire alarm. Missed calls, voicemails, texts. She was furious, said I'd ruined her life, said I had no right to drag her parents into this. But the truth is, she'd already done that. I just turned on the light. She came home later that night, stood outside the door yelling, said she had nowhere to go. I told her, flat out, I didn't care where she slept as long as it wasn't under my roof. "I was your wife!" she screamed. "No," I said. "You were somebody else pretending to be my wife. The woman I married would have never done this." That was the last time I saw her face to face. What came next was the legal storm. Lawyers, letters, depositions. She fought dirty, asked for alimony, tried to play the victim. But her own actions did most of the work for me. Jake eventually agreed to testify. I didn't ask him to. He just showed up one day and said, "I'll back you up." "I'm sorry, man." I didn't thank him, didn't shake his hand, but deep down I knew he wasn't doing it for me. He was doing it because our dad, the only financial lifeline he had left, was ready to cut him off for good if he didn't. Still, the truth came out. Emails, photos, texts, and through it all, Emily sat across the table, stiff as marble, like none of it mattered, like this was just some inconvenience. But the law saw through her. So did the judge. We settled. No alimony. She walked away with her stuff, and I kept what was mine, including my name, my dignity, and the pieces of my life that she hadn't touched. When it was over, I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty. Not because I missed her. I didn't. But because I finally understood something painful. I had given 6 years of my life to someone who never truly wanted the same future I did. I bent for her, adjusted timelines, smiled through disappointment, and in the end, she tossed it all aside for a man who couldn't even hold down a job. And now they're back together. My father called to tell me Jake moved to the city. Apparently they've found their way back to each other, two broken pieces trying to make a whole. Let them. As for me, I've started over, quietly, carefully. I still believe in love, still believe in family, but next time, I'll build with stone, not glass, because when the truth comes crashing through, you don't want to be standing in a house full of windows. I won't lie to you, there are days when I still wake up and reach for the other side of the bed before I remember it's empty. There are moments when I walk past a woman in the grocery store who wears the same perfume Emily used to wear, and for just a second, it all comes rushing back, how she used to hum while folding the laundry, or the way she curled into my side during rainstorms. But here's the thing. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning how to carry the memory without letting it break you every time. People say forgiveness is the key, but I've learned something else. Sometimes letting go is its own kind of love. Not for the person who hurt you, but for yourself. Because I spent too long trying to be the perfect husband. I compromised, adjusted, waited. I made myself smaller so she could feel bigger. And in the end, none of it kept her from walking away, not just from me, but from the version of herself that once promised forever. She made her choices, and so did I. I chose peace over pride, truth over fantasy. I chose to close the door on something that no longer served the man I was trying to become. And if you're listening to this, whether you're 50, 60, or 75, maybe you've stood in That same quiet kitchen, holding a truth too heavy to carry, asking yourself, is it me? Am I the fool for loving too hard? You're not. Sometimes love just breaks. And when it does, you don't have to hold the shattered pieces in your hand forever. You can set them down. You can walk away. You can begin again, even if that beginning comes a little later than you planned. I've learned that time doesn't heal all wounds, but it does teach you which ones you don't have to reopen. And if Emily ever hears this, if she ever wonders why I told her parents, why I shut the door so completely, I hope she understands. It wasn't revenge. It was clarity. Man can only be lied to so many times before the silence starts to speak louder than the words. So this is my goodbye. Not just to her, but to the man I used to be. The one who accepted less because he thought love required sacrifice. From here on out, I'll be building something better, slower, stronger, and if you're still with me, listening all the way through, maybe you're ready to build something too? Thanks for hearing my story, for walking through the storm with me, and if this touched you in any way, feel free to stay a while. Subscribe, hit the bell, share it with someone who might need it, because somewhere out there, there's another Tom, another Emily, another broken heart waiting to find peace. And maybe, just maybe, this is where healing begins.